Will my 6.7 Power Stroke in my 1972 crew cab ever run again? In this video, we find out. All right, guys, like I said, we are back on my ultimate crew cab project with my 6.7 Power Stroke in there. I think the main thing on this video is going to be the engine bay related and getting everything sorted out under here and getting this engine fired up once again. Now, it's been about 2.5 years ago now, I did a standalone conversion on this engine. Basically, all I did was strip down a factory harness and just made sure it still ran whenever I got done. Stripped away all the stuff I didn't need and kind of shortened up the harness and made it work for this application. So nothing too fancy other than a lot of time with some wire nippers and some wiring diagrams and my head just in the wiring harness and getting it stripped down and blown apart. So all the stuff like the power windows and locks and that kind of stuff we didn't need because I'm keeping all of that stuff. The bump side wiring harness to cover all that stuff. So basically everything that wasn't engine related had to go. And we got that all done. Now, the last time we saw this truck, I was assembling the front clip. We have the fenders and the front end assembled. And basically, since then, I have gone to town trying to make sure everything's going to fit under the hood. And I have quite a bit of stuff mounted up here and mocked up. A lot of this I did prior to body work and paint. So a couple years ago now, like my coolant bottle here, I did this before, and I had the radiator all mocked up before and kind of had a general idea of how I was going to do this. But a lot of the little stuff is kind of what I've been working on. Like I have a power steering reservoir, and then I had to figure out a way to get my hose to my power steering pump down here. So I found this hose that works. And this is actually a power steering pump out of a 7.3 Godzilla engine that has the hose pointed up, so it worked for me. The Power Stroke one was pointing down, and it went right into my inner fender. So little stuff like that where you have to kind of figure out something that works, getting all that sorted out. I have a set of CVF Hood Hinges. Now, we got these a couple years ago as well, basically because I mounted my coolant tank and realized the big factory hinges aren't going to work. So the guys at CVF hooked me up with these nice billet hinges, and they clear the coolant bottle there, and I reinstalled them just to double check to make sure I was right there. But yep, they clear. I have the wiring harness and stuff kind of installed. We still have some cleaning up to do, but I wanted to wait until I got it running to make sure everything was, you know, all still happy before I totally button the thing up. That harness goes up under the radiator here and pops up back on this side with a lot of the engine stuff here kind of just loosely strung about. This is with MAF sensor, I can't remember everything, intake air temperature sensor, some other stuff that have to go on the intercooler piping, so that's why they're long and loose. I'm waiting until I get that sorted out. But I have my computer mounted here. This is my glow plug module. It's over here. I also have my intercooler mounted. I'm not over the moon excited about this location, but it's kind of got to live with what you can package in this area, and it's getting really tight. So this is what I ended up with. Mounted it here, made a mount that mounts off the valve cover, and have it ready here to start mocking up my intercooler tubes. I'm waiting on bins. Those will be here today, so we're going to be working on those. And have my secondary coolant bottle mounted here. This is going to run the intercooler basically and a fuel cooler on a 2011, which this engine is. This actually cools the transmission as well, but I'm moving that to the primary cooling system, like a 2017 and up Power Stroke is. So I have to pull all this back apart and swap out the water pump, the primary water pump, and it has outlet ports for the transmission cooler. And that's basically just to keep my secondary system just a little bit cooler, so I'll have a little bit cooler temperatures for my intercooler. Another thing I'm doing while I have that apart to do the water pump is I'm taking out the secondary air conditioner, secondary alternator. This has two alternators because this engine was out of an ambulance And basically that alternator would probably never run on this truck unless you were like trying to jump a car or something. So it's really never going to do anything. And it's right in the way of where I want to put my intake pipe. So we have this coming up here, and I'm going to put a 90 here, and I'm going to try to package my air filter right here. I'm really running out of room here, but I'm hoping I can get a decent sized air filter right here. So if I get that alternator out of the way, I'll be able to put that tube up under here is what I'm hoping for. And then I'll have room up here for my intercooler pipes going to my intercooler here. This kind of stuff, you definitely have to kind of plan ahead, especially with something like this where the engine bay is so packed, because you'll run out of room and you won't have anywhere to do and you have to redo stuff. So that's kind of the stage I'm at now. I'm wanting to get all the big stuff knocked out so that I know everything is going to fit before I get too far along with everything. Touching on the radiator setup and stuff, because I get a lot of questions on that. This is actually a 6-liter radiator for a 6-liter Power Stroke, and that is basically because it is narrow and it fits between the frame rails. A factory 6.7 radiator is really wide, and the factory frame rails dip way down, and then that radiator sits in that dip, so it's not going to fit in between the rails on this. So I had to go with a narrow radiator. Unfortunately, the problem with that is it sticks down lower because it's taller. So it goes between the frame rails. You can see these here. These are actually frame rails off of my crew cab frame that was rotten due to the crew cabs have a double layer frame. Some of them do anyway, the 3/4 tons. And this one was rust jacked in between those double layers, and the frame was rotten out of it. So that is kind of why we're in this whole scenario, is I needed to do something about the frame. But these are the front frame sections off of that truck. So I cut out that big part of the frame that drops down on the Power Stroke frame. But I welded on this to the factory core support on the bump side, and that supports our lower radiator down there. And this is our radiator for our secondary cooling system down here that cools our intercooler. But it fits in nice in the core support here. Perfect in the hole. So that worked out. And I made some mounts here to mount this up on top. But because of that, we also able to use a 6-liter Power Stroke fan shroud. And that fan shroud, I love this part. I love doing stuff like this where it fits just perfectly. It fits the 6.7 fan just perfect in there. So can't reach, my truck's too high. I can't reach the fan to spin it for you. But it's just one of those things that worked out perfect. Really happy with how that worked out. And once I get all the pipes and everything in here, this thing's I'm hoping it looks like you pop the hood and it looks like everything's has its place and it's meant to be there, and not like, oh, he swapped this and that. I want you to pop the hood and be like, wow, that looks really complete and factory correct. So that's what we're going to be working on in today's episode. I think we're going to start on the intercooler pipes and intake pipe, just because I want to get that stuff knocked out. For one, it's going to look cool, and two, I want to make sure I don't do anything else with all the other systems here that get in the way of that stuff, because you're kind of limited on that. On a hose and stuff, you can kind of route it in different ways, but intercooler piping and air filters, you're very limited because they're big and take up a lot of room. So to get this thing back to running, basically what I want to hook up is obviously everything fuel, that's already taken care of, but all the electronics, I have to hook that back up, and that's basically just plugging it in and bolting it down. And then cooling is another thing I want to take care of, because I've only ever idled this thing for like a few seconds since it was in a wreck, because I've never had a cooling system. So we get the cooling system all buttoned up and taken care of, which I have the upper radiator hose all fabbed up. It was really easy, so that went together nicely. I still have to do the bottom one, but I have a plan for it. So cooling system, I want to do secondary cooling system, just to get that knocked out of the way. It's not really necessary to run it, but I kind of want to get everything going. So if I have any problems, I can fix it before we get everything buttoned up. And I also have to get the transmission cooler hooked up, because you're going to be pumping fluid whenever you start the thing. So I got to get the cooler hooked up. I just had it looped previously, but I need to service the transmission and get the cooler mounted and hooked up. So we're going to get those things knocked out, and we'll be able to see if this thing runs. So I'm going to get after it. All right, well, the water pump isn't here yet, so I decided to go ahead and leave the radiator and fan shroud assembly in place for the time being until that gets here. But I did go ahead and yank off the alternator here And you can tell we have a big hole here where that was. So that's going to open up a lot of room for our intake right here. But I have to remove the secondary water pump housing because it is different. It has these tabs up here to mount the alternator. And I have a secondary pump for a standard pickup with a single alternator that I'm going to swap out just so we have all the room we can possibly get. I want to obviously try to get the air filter as far away from the hot air from the radiator as possible. But we're working with a lot of tight areas, so that might not be possible 100%. We can get it kind of out of the way. There we go. I'm gonna get this guy out of here and then get some stuff figured up for my bins. And I gotta mount the regular pump back in here so we know where that's gonna be. But I'll get that stuff sorted out and then we'll jump back in here and do some fabricating. All right, I have the new water pump housing put on. As you can see, we have a lot more space right here. I have some of my bins. I have 145 tacked up here with a piece attached to the turbo here. And I have one of my 3-inch 90s up here just to kind of give a visual of how much room we're gonna have. But my plan is to put another 45 here and then a 90 on top of that. Like so. We'll probably have to angle the 90 down a little bit to give us a little bit better looking air filter position, something like that. So pretty happy with that. I did think about kind of favoring this side a little bit and cheating some of the angles and getting us a better position here, but I think with as short as my 90 bend is here, I think we have enough room right here for our filter. I know you guys can't really see. So I'm gonna throw some tacks on this and not get too carried away because I might change it, but I'm gonna throw some tacks on it and just kind of see what I feel. All right, guys, I forgot to turn my mic on, so we don't have any audio for this clip, but I wanted to show it anyway because I'm doing some figuring here. I have the intake pipe tacked up here that I'm installing, just loosely tacked. And this is straight up and down, or straight up, but I think I'm going to rotate it just slightly to the driver's side. It's going to give us a little bit more clearance up top, and it fits down in this trough of this coolant crossover really nicely there. So right next to the thermostat housing. So I'm kind of getting it over, and I'm giving myself some more room to get our 90 situated there and get our 90 turned around so we have more room for our air filter because we are space limited here because everything's kind of crunched up with this the bump side engine bay because it has those inner fenders there where the Power Stroke doesn't have that, and it has a lot more stuff stuffed all the way out the edge of the fenders. So basically we're trying to package all that in. But right here I'm trying to figure out how it's going to look and making sure my edges are really straight before I do any marking on it or anything to weld it. And I have this filter here. It's way too big. I don't have the right filter in yet at this point. So I'm just using this as a just general reference, kind of giving an idea how it's going to look. And I think I'm going to angle it down like that because if I put it straight like this, I don't really like the look. So I'm going to put another bend in it after this 90 to get the air filter kind of pointed down a little bit like that. Obviously not this big, but since I have that all figured up, I have to keep in mind that we have a hot side pipe coming out of here, and I have to route that above that, and I got to keep that piece down to give me enough room, and I have hood clearance to worry about. So all that in mind as I'm doing this. So kind of got to look at the big picture and not forget everything because you weld it all up and it won't fit.
So going to get after fitting that 90, I think.
All right, I kind of have it taped together with what I was thinking. You can kind of see how it jogs over and then comes back. And then I have my 45 there taped on there like that. And I found an air filter that was smaller that's going to fit in here. It's not the right diameter for the inlet flange, but you can kind of see with it pointed down like that. I think it's going to look cleaner with it kind of pointed down versus having it flat sticking out like this. So I think I'm going to go with that. Unfortunately, I can't get a big enough or as big a filter as I wanted. It's basically going to be the same size as this one, but a little bit bigger around. But we'll see how it works out. Worst case scenario, I could bump up to a 5-inch and flange it down up here at the intake here, because I'm going to have to extend it out a little bit. And I could bump it up to 5-inch maybe if I have problems. But we'll see how it works out with 4.5. Pretty happy with that. I'm probably just going to tack these up and leave it right there until I get the actual air filter in so I can confirm before I finish out welding. But since I have the intake where I think it's going to be, I'm going to start on the intercooler pipes. So they're the next step, smaller item to go. So we're going to move on to intercooler pipes, which are 3-inch, and we'll see how those fit in here. All right, we're like at the end of the day, I'm like 4 hours into this, and I've come up with some stuff. Let me show you. It's basically going to be very, very, very tight. I have these strings laid up as my do not get above marker for the bottom of the hood. And I've had to do a little bit of cheating because right here, we're like 1/8 of an inch, not even 1/8, a 1/16 of an inch from touching. But this little black mark right here is where the inner structure of the hood goes up. So there's a cavity up here that's about this high. So we have some room right here. It's just going to be right here. It's going to be a problem. But I think it's going to be smart to tack these up and then get the hood mounted. I was really wanting to avoid putting the hood on here just yet because it's a lot easier to work on this whenever you don't have the hood in your way and you get lots of good light. But it's also not good to have your hood hit your intercooler pipes. So probably going to have to do that. Up here on the intake Y, there's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately, because it's like bolted to the engine. And it is really, it's just our boot that is very close. As you can see there, the coupler right there is really close to the line. It's a little slacked right now, not very much. We have not even 1/8 inch, you know, so we might have some clearance issues with our hood, but I'm doing my best to try to avoid that. We do have an inner structure that goes up along here. That's what this measurement of this string is on, the inner structure of the hood. And then there's a stringer that goes this way, and that's what that black mark is, but it goes right here. We will have to deal with it with this one. But thankfully, I think I can kind of snake it in here in between the intake and the other one and keep it below that. It's going to be tight and fun. But that's what I've come up with so far. I'm going to tack this one because I think it's kind of where it needs to be. But I'm just doing like 3 or 4 tacks on each seam, enough to hold it together. And then we'll probably have to get the hood on here and get it all lined up and start closing the hood slowly and see how close we get. So I'm going to get this stuff tacked before the end of the day so it doesn't fall apart. My tape doesn't fall apart overnight and I lose all my work I've done. So I'm going to work on that and then we'll check back with you later. All right, next day here, I have our hot side. No, this is our cold side. Our cold side tacked up, and I have the hot side pieced together. This one took a lot of snaking around. It's still not welded together here in the center, but I think we are good enough to start welding this piece together. But I'm still really nervous about the hood because these lines are like guesstimates. Now, I did kind of favor the lower side on these just to give me more room. Just in general, because I kind of went right up next to the line, but I think we have a little bit more wiggle room than these lines show. Hopefully, I think we're good on the hot side. I don't know if you guys can see that. Our hot side there is good. I think we're good there. This side, it's this mark right here, like I said, and it's going to come right here, and I think right here is going to be my main problem. But if you just look at it, I have room going off this line, so I guess we will see. One thing that I did screw up is I had my intake piece that I had kind of figured up off of the truck because it wasn't wanting to stay, because this is kind of heavy stuff. There's another thing I should mention since I mentioned it. The reason I'm using stainless is because I'm a lot better at welding stainless than aluminum. Aluminum would definitely be better for this, but I can weld stainless a lot better, so that's what I like to work with. Ooh, if I can do this one-handed, this piece is kind of heavy. So if I go in there like this, where I have it set up, it hits my hot side. So I'm going to have to bring it out a little bit and just put like an inch more there, and then I can bring this up here. And I have my air filter mocked up that I think I can fit here, and it's pretty much all the room I have. So I'm probably going to have to get something figured up to get that right here, but I have to get this finalized before I can get this bend here figured out. So I'm going to work on that. I probably should wait until I have the actual air filter here, but I'm on a roll, so I made up this mock air filter that's off the specs from the website. So we'll get it in here and see where I can fit it. Hopefully it goes together just like I'm planning, but sometimes when you get tight like this, what you think is going to fit, and then when you actually get stuff in there and start fitting it, it's like no chance it fits. So fingers crossed we don't run any more problems. I'm going to get a piece cut for this and we'll see how it fits. All right, I got it figured up what I need. Ended up being right at 1 inch, so that's what we're going to start with. Gotta be very careful with this stuff because this piece of 4.5 inch stainless was $60. I'm gonna have some left over, but you don't want to waste any in case you need it. Get me lined up here. There's 1 inch. Double check. We look good. And there we have our 1 inch piece. Get it where it needs to go. And I also ended up being very tight here, but I'm not so worried about that. I am worried about the hood up here. This is slacked right now, but I'm more worried about the hood than I am at rubbing on this piece. You know, that's pretty minor. I am planning on making a little tab right here to mount to these coolant crossover right here, just to give it a little bit of support because it's going to be hanging out here. Where did I put my... There it is. Okay, here's this piece. So that's going to go like that. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. My air filter is hitting my secondary tank here. I mean, I can bring it down low. It still is pretty tight. I could bring my secondary tank up, and it really needs to anyway. I'm probably going to have to do that. I hate redoing things, but if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So if I put that there, air filter is going to go right here. I have to bring up my secondary tank about half, 5/8, something like that. And I think we'll clear. Maybe. Probably should wait till I have the actual air filter here too. Since these 4.5 inch pieces are quite expensive, I'll probably wait till I have the filter. But it's good to have a plan anyway. All right, well, I was going to be a good builder and mount my hood up and check clearances the for sure way by putting the hood in here and adjusting it. So I got my CVF hood hinges installed on both sides and was getting ready to get the hood out. And I thought, man, that's going to be a lot of work to get that hood up here, and I'm really not ready for it yet because I still have a lot of work to do here on the truck and around here with the steering column and brake booster. And if you're working like right here, the hood's going to be right here and blocking your waist. You got to come around this way. So I was really not wanting to do that. So I thought, well, I could put it on and then take it back off. And I thought, man, that's a lot of work. And really, I've already verified that it's going to clear. So I went back to one of my parts cabs and crawled up underneath it with the hood shut and took measurements again. And this string line should be right where the bottom of that brace is. And according to it, we clear. So, I mean, it's kind of... it's very close, which is why I wanted to test fit with the hood. But really, right, this pipe on this, or this side anyway, this piece of tape right here is where the brace this way goes that we have to clear, and it is far past where it starts dropping off. So I think we're good right here. The main problem is going to be right here where the coupler is. I mean, you can't even get a finger under there, so it's going to be tight. But if it does touch or is too close here, I can't change that because it's the intake manifold here. I mean, I could cut and change the intake manifold, but I'm not going to get into that. So really, if I do have a clearance problem here, I'm going to be cutting the inner brace of the hood anyway and repainting the bottom of the hood. So all that being said, I'm going to leave the hood off for now and just weld this stuff out, and I'll figure that out later. So we'll see how that works. All right, I got our hot side here welded up, all except one seam. I wanted to give you guys a little tip, doing as many of these as I've done before in the past. I've learned that it's easier to leave it in two pieces, and I had this off and I welded all of these pieces and all of these pieces. Now you have to be careful that things don't move and warp while you're doing that, so you have to have tacks all the way around everything. But it's a lot easier to manage these two smaller pieces than this one big piece when you're wiggling around and trying to get all these welds and make them all look nice. So if you can leave it in two pieces like this and then come back in here and fit it up and mark it and then take it back off and weld it, I find that's a lot easier to deal with. And I kind of work from one end and go to the other way, kind of how that's going to do. So I'm going to mark this, and then I'll get the start on the other side, the cold side. Thought I would show you guys how I mark it. So get it where you want it. A lot of times I focus on making sure everything's flush right where you're going to see it, because they don't always match up just perfect. As far as if you're on a bend and a straight, sometimes the bends get a little bit distorted, so they're not just perfectly flat. But I like to keep the flat spot where you can see it, because your weld will be a lot cleaner and straighter. So you put a nice mark there. And I like to have multiples just for redundancy. Make sure I get it in the right spot again. And then I'm going to tack this, pull it off and tack it, and then bring it back to make sure before I finish weld it. So we'll see how that turns out, and then I'll start on the cold side up here. All right, well, we have the hot side and the cold side welded up, and it turned out fantastic. I am really happy with how the pipes turned out as long as they clear. We're kind of just hoping there. If you look up here and kind of eye this way, I think it's going to be close. But like I said, that brace is like right here where it drops down here. So I think we're good. It looks very high right here when I look at it, but according to all my measurements, it clears. So We're just going to cross our fingers and hope the first time we close our hood, it's just perfect, and we're not going to have to mess with it anymore. So that's what we're going with. So next up, since the intercooler pipes are done, I'm moving on to filter. This is the filter that I have got for this because it fits right here. If I went any bigger, it hit our pipes here and our secondary coolant bottle. I'm a little worried this is a little small for this big diesel. You know, it looks big compared to a lot of stuff you see on gas stuff, but these diesels need a lot of airflow because they have turbos sucking a bunch of air and they have big exhaust blowing it out the back. So typically when you're using them hard, they need a lot of airflow. We might get away with this. We're just going to have to see how it works. If it starts sucking the filter in, you can kind of see these ribs get a little wrinkled and it's sucking the filter in. We might have to see if we can work in a bigger filter. But we're going to try it for now. So I got to get this bent out this way, and it's not going to be a straight shot to here. It'd be so simple if it was just straight and you can just hook it on. But it's not going to because it hits my secondary coolant bottle here. So I'm going to see what I work up here, and I'll fill you guys in when I get something. All right, I have pretty much everything figured out here. I went ahead and welded this 90 on because I had it in place, and I do have a little tab down here on this bolt like I was talking about. So this thing is like really solid now, which was kind of a concern early on, is this thing gonna be sitting out here flopping? And I also have a straight piece welded on this 45 here because I figured out the straight piece. And like I said, now we have now that I have these two pieces fully welded, now all I have to do is weld this one piece right here when it's all one big piece. So we're kind of limited on our filter with our secondary coolant tank right here, like I said, and our battery and our hot side intercooler pipe, and we kind of snaked it in here just like so. Now if I can get this marked, like that, I'm going to take this off and tack it, and then we'll see if it fits, and we'll come back. All right, moment of truth. I have it tacked up. Let's see if we can even get it in here. I think I can. There we go. Get it in here. It is kind of tricky to get it in the boot, but all right, there, that's in. And then our little bolt here is pretty tricky to get in as well. I didn't make it very user-friendly, but hopefully we don't have to service it too often. Get that tightened down so it's stable. Same thing with our boot here, just so I can feel how stable it's going to be. It's not bad. There's a little bit of play in it. I don't have my bolt all the way tight like with a wrench, but I think it's good enough for air intake. Another thing I wanted to check, not that I'm really going to change it now, but is can we get the filter on and off without taking the tube on and off or the battery out, because it is pretty tight. Looks like we are going to be able to. But it is tight, like I said. Hey, but if it fits, it fits. That clamp is not in the right spot. All right, our filter is there. It is not touching anything here. So it's sitting out here and open. It's not going to rub a hole in this filter, because you can. If this filter media is rubbing on something, you can rub a hole in it, and then you're going to be sucking dirt. So that's not bad. We're not touching anywhere. We're not touching our hot side pipe there. And we have clearance here. So overall, I think we're doing pretty good. Now I do have one more thing to add to this, and that is a MAF sensor. I think I'm going to add it right there, because these things, now on a diesel it's not as critical as like a gas motor or something that really uses the mass airflow sensor for fueling. The diesel, I'm not sure exactly what it uses it for on these. I know it's probably for fueling to help with that. But having it after a bend can modify your signal quite a bit, because that air kind of moves around in that bend whenever it's going around a bend instead of being straight. So I'm going to mount it right up here after the filter, where that air is going to be as straight as it can be, and right up top there. So I have to mark where I need to cut a hole in that tubing there for my sensor to go down in. And then I have to add a charge air temperature sensor. I think it's on the cold side, so the engine knows what temperature the air coming into the engine is. I have a bung for that, for the factory sensor, and I think we're good to go. Our pressure sensor is in the intake manifold right there, that thing right there. That's our MAP sensor, or our manifold absolute pressure sensor. So that's what's measuring boost. But we have temperature to add and our mass airflow, so I'm going to get after that. All right, guys, I already have it all blown apart and realized I didn't show you, but I do have my mass airflow sensor installed there. So that's right where the air filter comes in. So it's a nice straight shot to get a nice clean signal from the mass airflow sensor. And I did end up welding the whole intake piece together. So everything on our intake piping is all welded up and ready to go. And I have since dived in to replace the water pump. And I have our new 2017 style water pump installed. And if you can see these pipes here, these are going to go to my transcooler now, where the 2011 does not have those. So that gives me a port to route my transmission cooler, my water to oil transmission cooler to that, instead of the secondary system like the 2011 had. So that'll kind of clean up my secondary system here. And speaking of secondary system, this is our water pump for the secondary system, and I think I mentioned it, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video or not, but it comes right into our AC lines, and they are right in the way. So I have a -16 bung. I'm going to cut this off at an angle and weld that 16 bung on at an angle there to get it out of the way of our AC lines, and then I'll just run a fitting like this one here off of that down to our cooler that is down here. So that's basically going to be our secondary system. It's pretty simple. The only other thing I have to hook up is our fuel cooler, which is these lines down here. We have a little fuel cooler on the frame rail there to cool off the high pressure fuel. This fuel does get pretty hot because it pressurizes it pretty high, up to 4 to 30,000 PSI. So it can get hot, so it has a cooler on the frame rail just to keep your fuel from getting too hot. That'll be ran off the secondary system, and everything else will be on the primary. So hopefully our intercooler temps stay cool. So I'm going to finish up that and button all that up, and then have to do some servicing. I got to add oil to it because I don't have any oil in this thing. Service the transmission, and then finish up all the wiring, all this kind of stuff, and then we'll see if we can get the thing to run. All right, guys, I have an empty fuel jug sitting here next to the truck. So we got 6 gallons of diesel in the truck, and I have pretty much the engine bay put back together. I guess I still got to put the air filter on. You know, everything's not complete. This is just kind of for show. But we're going to see if it fires up. I also have batteries in here. They're not hooked up yet. We'll do that in a little bit. A little nervous about hooking everything back up. It's been, I need to look it up. It's been about 2.5 years, I think, since this thing's ran, before we did the paint and body. But I did want to show you one thing we had to do before we started up was get the transmission cooler set up. And what I have here is I made this bracket to hold this transmission cooler. Now this is a 2017 cooler, and these are 11 to 16 lines. Usually this cooler would be mounted here on a 17, like right here below the radiator. And actually a 11 to 16 is mounted here on the frame rail, a little bit further up in a different spot, but it worked. So I made the 17 cooler fit here, basically because the ports on the water are straight out. Right here is the other one I bought. See how the water ports are kind of going different directions. It did not fit right here. So this 17 cooler with the straight ports, I'll be able to put a 90 quick connect on here and run our coolant lines up here to our lines on our water pump whenever I get to that point. We don't have any coolant in it right now, but I did put transmission fluid in it, change the filter and fluid. So I had to loop that cooler, get that cooler installed so our fluid doesn't go everywhere on the floor when we start the thing up. But like I said, I don't have coolant in it, so we're just doing a little short test fire here. We're not doing the get it up to operating temperature or anything. But I guess all I have left to do is hook up the batteries. So we're going to take it nice and slow and make sure we don't have a whole bunch of draw. I already have the positives hooked up. So let's see. I hear the modules and my relay's clicking. All right. I don't think that's just a little bit of draw. That's not bad. So we will go ahead and hook everything up. Get our clamps tightened down. Now I have a buddy that did a 6-7 swap in his truck. He kept a little bit more of the original components. Mine's a little bit more stripped down, but he did keep the original dash and a lot of that kind of stuff. And he has a problem with draw. The battery's drawing down, so we're pretty curious to see if I have the same issue. I'm not sure. But there is a little bit of draw there when I connected the batteries. But like I said, those relays and stuff kick on even on a factory truck. Whenever you hook the batteries up right away, you can hear that little buzzing, whatever, something's making noise in here. But I'm going to take this slow. I'm going to unhook the fuel pump, turn the key on, and make sure everything's happy there. We don't like pop a fuse or something that something's wrong. Once I verify that's all right, we're going to hook the fuel pump back up and prime the fuel system. Now remember, we did a fuel pump in this truck the last episode, a high pressure fuel pump. So everything in the engine, all of our lines, all of our filters are going to be dry. So we're going to fill everything up and let it flush several times. The fuel pump runs for like 30 seconds or something. We'll do key on off like 3, 4, 5 times to make sure we get all the air through the system so that fuel pump can be have nice fuel to it when we actually start cranking. Now it's going to take a minute, or not a minute, but it's going to take a little bit of cranking before the thing fires off, just because there's air in all the lines, all the injection lines and all that stuff that we messed with. So we will have a little bit of fiddling to get this thing to run, but hopefully it starts up for us. I'm happy that we had the batteries hooked back up. I was kind of worried there's going to be some wire I forgot to hook up or something I hooked up wrong and it's going to cause problems. But so far so good. So I'm going to mess with the fuel pump, and I'll catch up with you guys when I get a little further along. Okay, this is the kind of thing that always scares me when I'm doing something like this, and it happened, unfortunately. So I have to share this with you guys. I got everything hooked up and went to hit the key to test the fuel pump and make sure everything's going, and nothing. Totally dead. Like the key wasn't even hooked up to nothing. I checked all my plugs, went over all my grounds, my power under the hood. Everything was fine. The key would just do nothing. And I thought, man, I must have missed something somewhere and didn't hook something up or something. So I was just going all over the hood looking for anything and everything I could find. And turns out it was this little bitty, itty bitty ground on the BCM. This little thing I didn't have hooked up. I even forgot about it. The thing wasn't even plugged into the BCM. It's the only wire on this great big plug. And I just had to ground it. And now everything works. Hear the fuel pump running. It hasn't picked up fuel yet. I just got it running. So I'm going to bleed this fuel system and get the air out of it and get everything all primed up so it's ready to go. And I'll catch up with you guys whenever we're ready to start cranking it. All right, I got the fuel system all primed up. It did take quite a bit. Everything was dry, so that's kind of to be expected. And with only 5 gallons in the tank, I think it was just too much for the pump to pull up being totally dry. So I put another 5 gallons in the tank and I put a little fuel in the bowl, took the bowl out, put some fuel in it, and then it picked up and started priming. And We got all the air out of the, well, most of the air out of the system that you can hear. You hear it running down here. Every now and then you hear an air bubble go back to the tank. Right there was one. So there's still some air in it, but I think we're good enough to fire. I ran that about 3 or 4 times since I've started hearing pretty much pure fuel and no air bubbles just here and there. So I have verified that we have crank because I had those other wiring issues. So I verified that we can crank over. We're going to see how she starts. I have everything set up to test for charging because I was curious about that, if everything's going to be running for the charging system. And remember, we can't run this thing for very long because we don't have a cooling system just yet. But we're going to give it a go and see how it goes. So I'll cycle the key again. We are running. All right. Let's see what we got. 13, we're charging. 13.5, 14. So that is good. We are charging. Awesome. It's running good, nice and smooth. That's what you want to see after this thing's been sitting. We don't have any stuck injectors. We don't have any stuck injectors. Our injection pump we put in here is working good. So I am ecstatic. This thing hasn't ran for like 2.5 years, so I was really nervous whenever it came time to get this thing fired up. But that's a big weight off my shoulders that this thing still runs. So now I can feel comfortable digging a little bit deeper into finishing everything here and kind of tidy up some of the wiring and stuff. So I know that if I do something and the thing doesn't run anymore, I know where to start. Where if I did that before, I'd, who knows? So, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to start on the cooling system because I want to get this thing up to operating temperature, like I said. But we still have a few things to do here and there before that, so let's get after it. All right, I've been busy plugging away at this thing. There was a lot of, before I do this, I have to do that kind of stuff going on because I want to put coolant in this thing. Well, before I put coolant in it, I have to get the HVAC system installed because the heater core and everything, coolant has to go through that. So I went ahead and got our Vintage Air AC box and heater box, our HVAC box, installed and started on the wiring for all of that. That's what all this is. But basically all of that is installed. So I could run my heater hoses. As you can see, I have that one. That one goes down to the lower radiator hose. On the 6.7, there are a ton of coolant lines going every which way for all of the different coolers and systems we have on this thing. And there's like 0 ports on this engine to hook up coolant. So we have this one port. This is our hot side for our heater. And then on the factory 6.7, the heater goes into the lower radiator hose. There's a plastic fitting. Actually, I have it right here for this hooks onto the radiator on the radiator side, and that right there is your heater return port. But I don't have that because I don't have the 6.7 radiator anymore, so I couldn't hook that up. So what I did was on my splice down here, there is a metal tube, and I welded a fitting in it and have a 5/8 nipple on that. So my heater goes down there and dumps into the bottom side of the radiator. And that's on like the suction side of the cooling system for the primary water pump. You kind of got to pay attention to that. So this is on the outside, the out port. So there should be pressure on that, or more pressure anyway. Then then it goes down to the bottom where it's going into the water pump. So hopefully it flows through there. We will see. But I have it stuck up here behind me where the intercooler mounts. And I actually tried some of these heat shrink hose clamps. Since we have a quick connect here, I can take it off. I thought I'd try one of those. I'm not sure if I'm sold on them just yet. Like, how do you know if it's going to be tight and not blow out on you some time down the road? But it says if you can't twist it, they're good. And I can't twist the hose, so we're going to give it a shot. I went ahead and used the crimp clamps on the valve there. I kind of felt a little better on those because you can actually see it squeezing the hose. But I don't know. I guess a lot of people use those things, so I'll give it a try. And a lot of other stuff, like the AC lines, I had to change some of that because since I got my heater core installed, I started doing the AC stuff. I have my AC condenser installed and my lines and my dryers under here. The factory vintage air system has you have the bulkhead fitting, this one right here, come out right here. And since our AC compressor is like right there with both of the fittings, like I was planning on having it just come 90 and go down to the pump, there was zero room for a hose, so that wasn't going to work. So I relocated it up here to the inner fender here, and that's better because it gives me better access to my fill port. Down here, I was going to have to take the air filter off to get access to the fill port. So that's a better spot for this one. The pressure side, the high side is going to be a little bit difficult. I think it's going to end up being right here below the secondary coolant tank. And I'm going to have a bulkhead fitting that isn't here yet, right here, and then it'll go over here to the condenser, because the factory lines for the vintage air kit comes up through here, and I don't have any room with the way I did my radiator, so we're going to rig it up that way. I have my coolant lines for my secondary system pretty much all figured up, but I'm going to do that later, because if I put water in the primary system and I have a leak, I don't want to have to figure out if it's the primary or the secondary. But I do have them all ready to go. Here they are hooked up to the secondary radiator, which is this guy right here. And I have these chutes going off right here they're going to hook up to here. This is my fuel cooler hose. I still have to hook all that up yet, but it's pretty much figured out. But everything is buttoned up on the primary side. I have my hose clamps on my upper radiator hose. I have my coolant degas bottle in, and the hose going down there to the engine. So we are ready to put coolant in the thing and see if we have any leaks and actually run this thing for real. So I'm going to work on getting some coolant in this thing and make sure we don't have any leaks, and we'll fire it up. So I bought concentrate coolant because you get a lot better deal on it, and I got some distilled water to mix with it. Now typically I would mix it before I dump in here, but since we're going in first, I'm just going to put straight water in it in case we have a big leak or something. I'm going to lose it, because it's a lot cheaper to buy some more of this than it is some more of the coolant. So we're going to go with straight water to start. There is a fitting down there on the lower radiator hose that I wasn't able to get a O-ring for, the little hose that goes back to the oil cooler. So that's the main thing I'm worried about. If that guy's leaking, it's going to shut us down, and I'm going to lose my coolant. Or what I would leak before I was able to get a pan underneath it anyway. Looks like we're good so far. No leaks, although I haven't put hardly anything in it. Not even half a gallon. Go ahead and put the whole gallon in it. Nothing's leaking yet, but I did forget I need to do an air bleed line for my degas bottle and my radiator. That will definitely leak coolant, so I'm going to rig up a air bleed line for that, and then we'll finish filling it up. All right, air bleed hose is hooked up now. We're going to go in with a gallon of straight coolant to offset our water we just put in there. Now this is yellow, Motorcraft yellow. Originally this truck would have had orange in it, or this engine anyway. But I think they have since replaced orange with yellow. So that's what we're going in with. Basically, I'm going to check this thing for leaks after every gallon. Because these engines with their quick connect coolant lines have bit me in the past. Well, nothing's pouring out of it just yet, so I guess we'll keep going. I am unsure how much this is going to take. I hope I have enough, because our system's going to be totally different than stock, since we have different radiator and running different systems. So I went ahead with a guess and hope I have enough. This stuff is 50-50 mixed now. I hear it gurgling, so we're not getting air out of somewhere. Not too bad, it's pretty far down there. I'm gonna get this thing, you know, topped off recently well and make sure I get all the air out of it so we get coolant filled up through the whole engine. And I'll catch up with you guys whenever I think I have enough coolant in it to run the thing. All right, I have coolant in it. I don't really know where it wants to be. I have some coolant in it. We're gonna see if it goes down, if there's air in the system somewhere, which there probably is. But we're just gonna see where it wants to live. Unfortunately, I don't think our level indicator here is gonna be accurate where it needs to be for the height of our radiator. Since that is a little bit lower. So I'm probably going to run more in it than that is. So to check my level, I'm probably just going to have to look in there. I guess that sight glass will work if I'm like extremely low, like to check before a pre-trip or something. But that's just kind of stuff we're going to figure out as we go along. I did have one coolant leak as I was filling. I had to stop the heater tube right here. There's an O-ring that goes into this coolant bypass or crossover. And I've had those things leak before. Those O-rings on there are terrible. I don't know what kind of O-rings Ford is using, but they go bad. And then when you put them together, they ooze out or they squeeze themselves out and then they leak. I did that on this one, or this one did that. So pulled that out, replaced the O-ring, and it seems to be resealed up. I do have a puddle of coolant now in the valley of my engine I need to do something with, but it's fine for now. It seems to be sealed up now. And actually, this is the next day. And we don't have any big puddles of oil or coolant under the truck. So everything seems to be pretty sealed up. And one thing I did want to mention, I did change out this plug here. This is was the factory plug. I have it here on the ground. This guy, this transmission plug, it had a lot of wires that I wasn't using for functions like upshift and downshift. And stuff like that, I'm not gonna integrate into this truck. So that's what these bare wires here that are cut off. I haven't buttoned it up yet because I want to make sure I did everything right. Because you know we have a bunch of wires here, and I want to make sure I wired it back up correctly. I did them one at a time, so hopefully we're good. But we're testing that as well when I start this thing up because I did that since the last time we ran this thing. So I think we're ready to fire this thing up and kind of let it get up to operating temperature. And see how it goes. All right, let's see if this thing's going to fire off for us. Fuel pump's running, that's good. That's on that plug I replaced. All right, everything seems to be happy there. Check again for leaks. Gotta check around the water pump since I replaced that too. Our heater tube seems to be sealed up now, so we're not leaking there. No drips on the floor yet either. Main thing is I just want to make sure that we're moving water like we should, so we don't overheat anything. It's like our base engine temperature is about 68 degrees. These 6.7s take a long time to warm up too, so. So I'm gonna let this thing warm up and we'll see how it works out for us. I already got my scanner hooked up and we are gaining coolant temperatures. So we are 105 on our coolant and our oil is up to 102. So I think we are safe to say we're moving coolant through the system, and I went and put a hand on the transmission cooler. Those lines going to it, and they're warm, so it's pumping water to those, and our water level hasn't dropped, so we're doing pretty good. One thing I did notice while I was going through the different parameters we have here is vehicle speed is at 158 right there. So I don't know how it came up with that number, but it thinks we are going 158 miles an hour apparently in park. So that is a problem, because our torque fuel spark limit stat is speed limit, so it's limiting us on our speed. It's trying to slow us down because it thinks we're going 158 miles an hour. So that is going to be a tuning problem. We're going to have to fix that later in tuning. I do not know why it thinks that. It's probably because typically this truck is this vehicle speed is taken off the ABS sensors on the axles, and there's an ABS module. I don't have any of that, so it might just be a default setting where it just went to the max of that sensor, or that module can read, since that module is not there. So we do have a bunch of codes, but most of those are for communication problems, and the little sensors I don't have hooked up because my charge pipes aren't there, like the temp sensor and stuff. So since we're warming up nicely, let's get a reading here, just general on the engine. Make sure our top of our heads are about the same as the coolant temp, about 105, 106. Yep. See what our exhaust manifolds are doing, 117, 14. They're not that hot. Like I said, these 6.7s take up forever to warm up. Let's see what we are in the valley. We're not even 100 degrees in the valley yet. So I'm going to shut her down, give her a once over before we get up to full operating temperature, and just kind of work our way slowly to steaming hot. If I can turn the key the right way. So I'm going to give it a once over and just make sure everything's good. All right, it's been running now for a good 15-20 minutes. It's still only to 137 degrees, but it's running good. No smoke or anything crazy out the exhaust, just some burn off usually from new exhaust. The oil's in the exhaust system. Made it a little bit hazy in the shop, but no like engine smoke. We're still good for coolant leaks underneath, so that is good. Our thermostats haven't opened yet. There's two thermostats on the 6.7. I think the coolest one is only 190 something degrees. So we're pretty far away from that thing opening. So our upper radiator hose is still cold. But I was playing around here with my scanner since I have it hooked up. And I have it on my transmission right now. I don't know if you guys can see that. Is it going to blow it out on the screen? And I was playing around with, where was I reading that? Output shaft RPM. So I was shifting it in the gear. You guys can see that jump up just to make sure our transmission is working and shifting. Right now we're in neutral. There's drive, and it'll jump up, and then it jumps up again. So now we're in second gear. It kind of just stalls out in second gear. We don't have any drive shaft or anything hooked up, so I don't really want to just give it the beans with a free output shaft. But it does shift to second gear. So yeah, at least it's shifting the first and second. We don't know how it's going to work under load. But yeah, there's a few issues I got to work through programming wise, but that's not a kind of to be expected anyway. Get this thing shut off and checked over again. I'm not sure if I'll take it all the way to thermostat opening or not. I think we're good enough for now, just to kind of get some heat in the thing and let this thing sit here and idle for the first time in probably 10 years, a decade, because this engine was wrecked pretty far back. I'd have to actually look. I think it's 16 or 17, so 9 to 10 years. This engine probably hasn't idled that long since then. So glad to have this thing up and running again and sounding great. We didn't have any major problems. We had that little bitty coolant leak, but that's pretty minor. This thing is looking great. I love how it's coming together. I love the packaging that I'm able to fit under the hood here and make it fit nice and neatly and kind of look factory correct if Ford had a 67 Power Stroke in 1972 when this truck came out. But I think I'm going to end this video off here. We got our goal finished at the end of the video, get this thing running again and idling on some coolant and for a long extended period of time. Big motivator. I need to finish up stuff on the engine, and then we got to start digging into the interior, all the wiring we have yet to do on the inside. We have to finish up our AC system, and we got to do all of our interior. We got headliner, we have seats, we have carpet. All that's going to be on the next video on this truck. So if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button. Give me a like if you're liking this truck. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.